apologize about.
Yeah.
Are you starting the committee of the whole?
This one feels on
Is that how big it is now? You can really see the smoke from the fire right there.
Fire.
There's up on
This
Cobalt,
one's on.
up on the
It's
highway.
actually at Elkings. It was a trailer that lost its tire.
Oh, is that
The
what
rims parked down the highway.
Oh, there you go.
In Osoyoos?
West up.
Up on top of the Victor, over
No,
the Victor?
on the west side, where Elkings ranches.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
almost at night.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Committee of the Whole, and just after 5, thank you for being patient while we finished up. And I'd like to call for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? And, excuse me, motion to approve the adoption of the prior minutes, that would be from the April 23rd Committee of the Whole. Moved, the voters, or, and the second. All in favor? And opposed? And that brings us right to water matters, which we have the first quarter update, strategic priorities, operational plan, and departmental activities, and I'll turn things over to Rosanna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report before you is the first quarterly report, and it also includes the department quarterly reports from each of the departments. Okay, so the strategic plan was adopted by council at the February 20th council meeting. It's attached to this report for your review, and the action plan associated with the strategic plan is also included and has been updated to inform council on the work items that stem from the council's direction in the strategic plan. We've also submitted our activity updates, and in the report it shows you what I've been up to over the last few months, so I'm not going to go through each one of those. You all can read those, but you might have any, do you have any questions on any of those items that I've dealt with over the last 3 months? So these quarterly program updates are provided to council to ensure responsiveness to your identified priorities and to capture any emerging issues in a timely manner. And I'm just going to go into the report really quick. There's just a couple of things I want to highlight. So the downtown action plan, we're continuing to work on that. We did get funding, and we have got EcoPlan on board to start doing the actionable economic development strategy, so that we can go forward with some additional things within the community. We're looking right now at setting up a meeting with the downtown revitalization or the downtown advisory committee, and that's where we're going to start providing, getting some recommendations from them to increase our brand exposure, and we're hoping to do that for the end of this month. There has been some movement on the contribution of land with regards to affordable housing. There has been some research done with regards to that. And the edible trail is within the downtown core. It was planted last week.
I think it was.
Yeah, last week. So that's now on Main Street going along. So pretty soon people, it's not big yet, but pretty soon people can go along and pick their spaghetti sauce ingredients. And also we have secured housing for the South Okanagan Emergency Room for the locum doctors at this point in time. So we have worked towards something with the RDOS and the Osoyoos to keep the emergency room open 24/7. And we have had a council-to-council meeting with Osoyoos, and I do believe we're having a council-to-council meeting later this month with the OIB. And of course, our enhanced citizen engagement, we are now sending out highlights after each meeting. We've developed a survey. I've got survey questions developed that I'll be bringing forward to ensure that council is comfortable with those for the citizen survey. And we've started putting notices into the tax and utility bills just to provide a newsletter so that people are aware of what's going on. And of course, it's ongoing for our social media pages. And we do have a meeting coming up with the Osoyoos Indian Band with regards to the re-engagement of partners. And then research has been undertaken with regards to engaging youth to participate in a junior council. And Councillor Grice and myself will be looking at the terms of reference over the next few months to get those so that they come forward. Okay, I want to go down to our hits, Facebook likes. We've had 531 and an increase of 45 since last quarter. Our Twitter followers, we have 129, which is also an increase of 16 since the last quarter. And that's all I want to point out in that. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And the resolution before you is that council received the first quarter 2018-2022 strategic priorities, operational plan, and department activity reports for information.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So are there any questions from Ms. Gowan? No? Anybody care to make
I'll move the recommendation.
thank you very much. And a seconder? All in favor? Opposed?
I did have one comment.
Okay.
These Sundays are pretty major for people getting on the website. 500. We don't break barely 50 on any other day.
Sundays are the hot days.
That's because of looking at
To try to
on the agendas.
Oh, was that right?
Maybe.
They have nothing to do after church.
All right, so next up, again, thank you for being patient. We have a delegation joining us from the Oliver Osoyoos Search and Rescue regarding the proposed new building at the Oliver Airport. And welcome, and please come on up.
Excellent. We have
Yes, it's on the laptop there,
Okay.
the PowerPoint.
It's already up?
It's open.
Is it open?
Yeah.
Here, I'll bring it.
This.
Oh, I can operate it.
So you can
They can do it.
Point.
They can
and then
operate it.
forward and back for your slides.
That's not bad.
Okay, and it's already there.
It's already on.
Well, we have an updated one with
Oh.
two video segments on it.
Oh, I don't know about video.
That'll make it interesting. So,
If you could
that's
just call that one up, that'd be great.
That's actually the picture.
Sometimes the picture helps explain.
You don't need speaker for it.
Yeah, you can turn
You
the
don't
speaker
have
on.
volume on the video. Nothing of interest.
And take the second one.
The second one?
Yeah, thank you. It'll just take a
Same
little.
name or?
Same name.
No, it won't be that name.
Oh,
No, maybe not.
council open document.
No,
Same.
just go to select. You have to close that
Yeah,
one.
we
have to
we
close
just
the
got
other one
same
first.
name.
Our apologies for the technical side.
It would be an exciting meeting if there weren't just at least one or two people. What is it?
That's right.
Technological
Can
issues.
you play some interlude music, like, you know, Jeopardy or something?
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Holy
Maybe
crap.
this laptop is really small.
Well, that's a very large
Yeah.
Big file.
file.
Perfect.
Those two videos.
Yeah.
Two videos in there.
We have a very special bond.
Perfect. And you got the.
It's right there.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, Mayor Johansson, and the council. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Rob Belsing. I'm the past president of the group. Joining me today is Nina Munkoff and Brenda and Michael Erichuk. Brenda is the director and Mike is the building committee. I'm apologizing, because I had another cup of coffee at the DG, so now I'm just like, anyways. Thank you for listening to our delegation here. So a little bit of a background here. Our primary call-out area extends from the U.S. border north up to OK Falls, west out towards Paraneas, and east towards the Christian Valley Rock Creek area. Not only are we just Oliver Osoyoos Search and Rescue, but we are a member of the Okanagan Similkameen Search and Rescue Committee, that group was formed back in 2006 by request of the regional district. At that time, or prior to that time, there were 4 groups that would attend their budgetary meetings, all requesting money. They said, we're all one and the same. Can we not form some sort of a loose agreement and come up with one representation? So the SOSAR committee was formed, and that's where all our funding locally comes from. Regional district, so the teams, the 4 teams, Penticton Search and Rescue, Carameus, Princeton, and ourselves, we all are part of that group. We meet quarterly to talk best practices and administrative stuff. And we train together, and we mutual aid task as required. So that extends out our call out area out to west of Manning, into the Manning Park area, north up towards Kelowna, and no further east, but it's taking in the other groups' areas as well, because a lot of the calls don't happen locally. We're assisting other teams. So we have currently 28 members, and we are growing. All our members are GSAR trained as a fundamental or a basic training that they all have to go through before they are allowed to go out in the field. With the addition to that, we have specialty and technical skills. We have swift water and flat ice rescue. So our members are part of that group, along with the other 3 teams. We train regularly. We train with the people out of the Kootenays and the Kelowna and the other areas in southern British Columbia. We also have rope rescue. We have a rope team lead down here in Oliver, so she'll attend tasks when they can't get a rope team lead out of Penticton. So she can be tasked anywhere, not only within the local area, but out into the province as well. We have a group of trackers, and we train and work with members from across British Columbia as well. And we now have a new search dog in training, with Mike as the operator, the handler of the dog, and they're just new, so we're very excited about that one because the dog up in Penticton was retired and there's been nothing since. So as that speaks, mutual aid, now the area is much, much bigger. So our need. We currently have the lot that we're sitting on, and we're very happy for that lot. We appreciate everything the town did for us to get that lot. But we do need to kind of improve our response times out for missing people, search and rescue, and emergency mutual aid call-outs. So that includes the towns locally, depending on if there's an emergency of sorts. And security of our equipment. We've had some vandalism in the past, as the vehicles and the gear now sits in containers, the 40-foot containers that you see on our lot. The trucks and the trailers are exposed to the elements and subject to vandalization. We've had it done once, but so I guess we've been lucky in the last 5 years. But with that, it takes an awful long time for us to get loaded up to go. So typically, it's about an hour when we receive our call out before we can actually roll. So if we're trying to get people up to Merritt, like where we were for the missing cowboy, it does take an awful long time. If you have to shovel in the morning or whenever, that doesn't help either. But anyways, the trailers, we would like to have the trailers connected to the trucks and the equipment and loaded. So quads, UTVs, snowmobiles, swiftwater rafts, etc., etc. Rope gear. The first aid gear cannot sit out in the vehicles currently because they subject to temperature stuff. So we keep everything inside and then load as we go. So the need for this station is paramount for us. We really would like to get this done up and built, and so that we can utilize it. So the size we are requesting is 48 feet by 60 feet with 3 bays for drive-through, and drive-through is the critical because we're not all professional drivers. And when we come home at 5 a.m. from a long call up in the Princeton Manning Park area, you should see what it's like to back up a trailer. And it's not funny sometimes, but after the fact, it is maybe a little bit funny. Not at the moment. And 12-foot high overhead doors, standard type of thing, so that we can just really launch and go. And that is the view of the proposed building. And finally, the benefit. The new station will allow trucks and trailers and equipment to always be securely stored, loaded, and ready to go for emergencies in any weather or temperature. Results substantially improved response times to our call-outs. Increases of the ability to save lives. Every second does count. Trucks and trailers and equipment have an extended useful life as they're not sitting out there exposed to the elements of the environment. And everything is in an insulated building and they are secure. So I'll turn the presentation to Mike and he will take it from
I'm
there.
Mike Hirschik. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to council. We very much appreciate that. So as Rob said, really the impetus of the building and positioning the building on the lot or the land that's there focuses around improving our response time. Because in a SAR incident, let's take a flat water rescue incident, that 1 hour can make the difference between life or death. Recoveries are different because, I mean, the sense of urgency may not be there. It's closure for a family. But let's take that flat ice rescue. If the trucks are loaded, the trailer's loaded, the equipment's loaded on the trailer, the medical equipment's all there in a heated building, we can actually arrive and go. So that's the primary driver. The secondary driver, as Rob said, is focused around the fact that our equipment, our building, and everything has a longer useful life. So with our proposal to provide a optimal building placement for drive-through, so that means you come around into the building, come through the building, and you're actually in the building. So similar to the fire department, except on the lot that we're at, we do not have side access like the fire department has. So if the fire department did not have side access to come in this way, they would have to come in this way and turn around to enter into the fire department. Or they would have to back in. But since they're only backing in an engine or a water hauler, it's one unit, they're not actually backing in a trailer with equipment on it. That becomes very problematic from a logistics point of view and a skill point of view. So for optimal placement, we're looking for a lot expansion. We're requesting a lot expansion from 50 meters by 57 to 70 meters by 57. So that's an expansion for approximately 20 meters further to the north. So kind of the way we looked at it was the pocket from where our spot started and where the end of the reserve land is. We kind of looked at the midpoint. So it was somewhere between 68, 69, 70. So both parcels would essentially be the same size. That's what we were trying to do. And be respectful of that other parcel and the fact that that is a revenue generation possibility for yourselves as well. The other factor is we're looking at requesting a reset of the remaining lease. I think right now we're at that 14, 15 year mark. When we apply for our grant, for capital gaining grant, they look at one of the areas that's scored is how long of a commitment you have to be on that site. So we're looking to get optimal points when we actually do for our grant application. And every point counts because it's a competitive process from the BC government. So this here is essentially our current lot size in blue. The expansion we're talking about is essentially this 20 meters. So as I said earlier, what we were trying to do was make sure that we didn't encroach more than half of what was in here. So this here was really, we were trying to be the halfway point. So it's 68, 69, 70 meter area. At first glance, you would logically say, well, why don't you put the building here? We attempted to do that, but when we actually do the drive-through, you come around this way, the C-cam have to remove, then you have to turn around and come in this way. And what you'll see through the video that we have is you can access the further north bay, but the first and the second bay are not accessible when we actually are connected to the trailers. So that's why we're looking at pushing out to the north. And then a side benefit, of course, is secure parking for team members. But that's not a primary driver, that's a secondary benefit. Yeah, here we go. So again, justification for the lot expansion. In the existing lot, we have minimal space for the truck and trailer to drive around the back and into the far bay of the building. What you'll see in the video is that with the C-can even being moved, that will allow us to get into the third bay of that. If it was on the existing lot, we would not be able to do a drive-through on bay 1 or bay 2. With an expansion to the north, we have adequate access for truck and trailer to come in around the back and access all the bays. So all 3 of our trucks can be loaded, ready to go. And then, as we point out, an added benefit is the secure member parking. Because when you get 20 folks on a call, and you could be gone for half a day, you could be gone for a day, you could be gone for 2 days, those vehicles start looking enticing. When they're inside the locked area, it's much more secure. And those members' vehicles have a lot of technical gear in it, which may be used on a search or may still be in their vehicles. So we're respectful of that as well. So, there's my technical difficulty. This here video, now, is it going to play for me? I don't see it. Let me just do this. Where's the mouse? There we go.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
So this here's a lot placement. We have Rob walking around the lot, just so you know where this is. So this here essentially would be where the building would be if we could fit it in our existing place. So Rob didn't exactly walk like the video is showing. So we wanted to give you a clear picture of where the building would be on the existing lot. Otherwise, we really need to take you there to get a feel for it. And what you'll see is when the vehicle comes in, we skirt by this C-can, we come around, and we get into where the outer north bay is. We just basically come in contact where the door would be. So with the C-can gone, you would see that the truck would be able to come back and around and completely come into the third bay. So that will come up here momentarily. Now, the gentleman driving is Jacob Keller. He's actually a professional truck driver. So he's got the skills to drive very well. And as Rob said, we're not all professional truck drivers in the SAR group. I apologize for the video skipping like that. It didn't do it on ours at home. So with that C-can move there, you get a little bit more radius in turning. And what you'll notice right about here, he's just hitting the property line where it exists, and then he swings back in. Now what I'm doing is I'm walking up there and I'm going to pace 5 steps, which is 15 feet, which is 3 feet for the beginning of the bay door. It's a 12-foot door, which takes us out to 15 feet. Then we're going to have him driving the rest of the way. So right there would be basically where the bay door is on the other one.
Did you get your toes run over?
Actually, pretty close. In fact, we turned the video off because Nina goes, "Oh my God."
Oh man.
Or the audio, pardon me. So right there, I just come in contact. So with that C-can that was there, with it moved, a non-professional driver could bring that around. As it is, we've got a professional driver bringing it around. So that's within our existing lot. So let's take it to the next one. I'll just hit page up or down. Yeah, we'll go down. There, here's the lot extension. So again, we now have Rob pacing out the area. You'll note that the existing property line is probably right about here. And so now we've spaced the building out so that all 3 of the bays would be accessible for a trailer and a truck to come around. And as I mentioned, we were trying to look for that middle spot between the lots. I'm not a surveyor, but I know it's somewhere around 68, 69, 70, and then both parcels on both sides would be the same. You'll also notice in this one here, we've got the little Timmy's box there. That's the door on one side. And then we put this pylon to be the door on the other side. So the opening for the truck is basically between those two. We've got Jake coming around again.
Those are really shaky.
How much coffee did you guys have?
I think not enough, like way too much.
Yeah, again, I apologize on the
You need to
video.
go with non-decaf, some decaf.
The file with the video is 500 megabytes, so I
That's
think it's
big,
a
yeah.
little challenge loading up. And as you can see, you can safely position it in. Right there is that where the door is. And when the video stops, we go measure it, and he's on this side, much clearance on both sides. So it's a perfect optimal placement of the building.
Is that the first
That's the first
bay?
bay, yeah.
That's the first
That's
bay?
the first bay. So all the subsequent bays are accessible. So that's the dilemma. I mean, our original intention was to, fit the building on the existing lot. When we actually went through the process of placing it out and had Paul out to come and look at what we were trying to do for the airport, it became quickly noticeable that it wasn't feasible what we were trying to do. Again, the focus here is to improve response times, which can lead to saving lives. And that's really what we're driving at. Secondary benefits is the extended useful life of the equipment. And of course, secure parking for team members, especially when they're out for long calls that go into the nights and subsequent days. So I'd like to open it up for questions. Turn that back to you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for the videos. Do we have any questions? Anyone?
Oh, it seems
Not
to be
everybody all at
lost.
once. Councillor Matz?
I have one question. I noticed you're talking about moving, and looking at the picture we have, is there 2 containers?
There are, yeah.
Okay, did you consider moving both? Moving all of it? Like on this, it's hard to tell.
The other container is actually part of the fence line of the inner compound. So we're a little hesitant to move that one as of yet, because now we're incurring some more costs to redo our inner compound for where the trailers are currently sitting.
If you were to move both of them, because the turn that's required, you'd get to about somewhere between the second and the third bay. So we don't quite get into the second bay because the turn's pretty tight. Yeah. But yes, the first one has
considered.
First one absolutely
We
would
figure the whole lot.
will have to go, and the second one, problem is you go out like this, and then the turn has to come back this way. It's a relatively tight turn, and that second bay would be problematic. Very good question, though.
Anyone else? Mayor Jansen, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I guess we just asked, you're applying for grant funding, do you have an idea what the cost would be associated with the building? And would the grant funding cover that?
We're looking at a reserve with the new SAR that we have for approximately $100,000, and we're looking for $100,000 from the province. So the building itself will be a $200,000 building. We're not sure yet from a quoting perspective if that is going to get us the heat in the building the first go around, or we have to fundraise for that afterwards. The goal is by next year to have a completely locked up building with insulation and in-floor heating, pipes in there, LED lighting, and being solar ready. Because the next phase on this, from a fundraising point of view, is to actually light up the building from a solar perspective. Both from an eco point of view, and also to get 5% weighting on the grant application for your eco-friendliness of what you're doing. So we need all those points. Again, it's a competitive process.
Thank you.
Councilor Ramsey?
Is this a situation where if you didn't get the grant, that you wouldn't be needing the land?
If we didn't get the grant, we would look at reapplying for that grant in the subsequent year. And then hopefully anyone that scored higher than us is no longer in the competition and we rise to the top.
Is it a situation where the money should be in place before we give up the land?
We would need the commitment for the grant application. So the commitment from the town is what the province looks for in scoring an application high. So without it, we can't guarantee that we can score as high as we possibly can. But to your point, if we did not get the grant application, then we would not be needing that land at that point in time, and conceivably we could come back to council and visit it again, but our intent would be to come back and apply for the grant in the subsequent year.
So is it a situation where council could give you a letter of support saying that yes, if you were successful, that we would provide the land? Rather than incurring the costs of, because there's costs involved in transferring, surveying, and all these other things.
Agreed.
Give a letter of commitment saying that yes, if you get the funding for the building, or if you show the funding for the building, whatever the source might be, that the town is committed at that point to providing the space that you're looking for.
Yeah. So then there would be a subject to available funding to move the building forward, building project forward. I mean, that seems relatively logical.
Brad, are you okay with that? Letter of support? We have our 100,000 for the grant application. So
We'd probably
To
look
check
at
on it.
the wording a little bit. I can actually phone the province on that one too.
Anyone else? No? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Excellent. We really appreciate you taking the time to have us here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, and we're gonna go on and debate that next, so that's what we're on to, is business J1, the search and rescue new building and lease loan amendments.
You're welcome.
And so
Thank you
we
so
have
much, sir.
a-
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have the report from the corporate officer, which is attached, and we'll turn it over to
Thank you, Chairman Ventimiglia. I don't think I need to go into a lot of detail in my report because I think you've heard it already from the presenters this afternoon. My recommendation is that the committee of the whole recommends to council to support the construction of the new building within the existing search and rescue lot as it's defined, and further that council provides a letter of support to the Osoyoos Search and Rescue for their grant application. While they were speaking, I did take a look at their lease, and we would have to speak to the lease as well because there is not a clause in there for renewal, as most leases do. So we would have to speak to the 20-year requirement that they're seeking for their lease.
Who would like to start?
I'll just ask one question. It says in your report that was identified as a potential revenue generating parcel for the town of Oliver. Was there ever any information on what else could go there and what the potential revenue would be? Just that if it was significant, yes, I know.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Madam Chair.
He's going to sleep at the wheel up here.
We did have or a couple of individuals that were looking at putting in a hangar on that side of, a two-bay hangar over there next to them at one point, and so that would be at $4 a square foot.
Meter.
The square meter is what the charge would be for that area.
Thank you. Anyone else? Some questions or comments? Councilor Schwarzenegger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually in favor of giving them the increased lot area. I think we do have the ability to sell that or lease that to somebody else but there's the whole other side of the airport and a considerable other amount on this side. You know, I think if the fire department came to us and needed an extra 20 meters, we wouldn't even think about it, we'd just give it to them. So I'm in favor of giving them the expanded area and a new lease for 20 years. And I'm fine with making that subject to it then getting the financing to build their building.
Okay. Councillor Briggs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would pretty much echo exactly what Councillor Schwarzenberger said. Are they paying for their lease currently?
No.
Okay.
Which is why we'd be losing on the rubber.
Which is why they're not asking for money.
Yeah.
And they're tax exempt as well.
Yeah, they don't pay taxes.
Council Mattis?
Just that, before we ever get, I know it's a developable corner, but the reality is that we would push development on the other side long before we're ever gonna come to this corner.
Yeah.
It's, the potential is there, but it's so far away in my mind.
The runway,
With the taxiway on the
the
other side.
taxiways on the other side.
Development makes sense for us.
If no one else has any comments, I would also echo those ones. The only thing that I would want to make sure before we go ahead and, I mean, I guess we have to pass a motion of some sort because they're kind of in a, I'm assuming, a time crunch to get their application. But I wouldn't want our wording of subject to financing or, you know, whatever, or whatever our subject to, I wouldn't want that to impede or hinder their application process. And we don't actually know that until they check into it, right? Mayor Johnson?
Just looking at this as potential revenue property, and that corner lot is probably more valuable than on the other side of it. I believe that's a cadet building there. What is that other piece of property there? Is that town-owned land? Would it make sense to have SARs on the other side of the cadet building?
Or on the south side.
Well, it's just containers, or is there a building there?
No, there's a building.
There's a building there as well.
Okay.
It's trailers, but it's plumbed and heated.
Okay, no,
Gas lines and
I wasn't,
everything.
It's the cadet building.
well, the cadet building's there, yes, but what's on the other side of the cadet building?
There's nothing. That's what this building is, that's what that is. That's their current offices,
Okay.
Which is, yeah, as
which is plumbed and heated
Plumbed
and
and
gas
heated.
lines and.
Are they trailers?
I believe they're
The
modular.
building.
Modulars, yeah.
There's a module building there for their office.
And that land on the other side is just vacant town land as well?
Oh, yeah, all the way down here, where it's,
I
goes from there to the fire department training ground.
think those are the old rodeo grounds or no? They're down lower.
I feel like he lost control.
To speak to the letter of support conditional on the financing, it wasn't so much that we would make it conditional on the financing, but rather that the town send a letter saying that we are prepared to give them the land.
Right.
And
then just actually not act on it.
renegotiate the lease.
Yes.
Provided that that is sufficient for them, I would agree with all of that. I guess, should they go to make their application and realize that's not sufficient for some reason, then they can come back to us pretty quickly. Okay, so for here, what are we doing today at this meeting? Looking then, okay, so there is a recommendation there, which it sounds like we're potentially not doing exactly that, so would somebody like to make a recommendation of some sort that the committee will recommend to council?
It's on the.
Oh, there's a new one up there, okay. So, I can read it. So the committee of the whole recommends that council support construction of a new building with the increase of 20 meters north. Yeah, oh yeah, that's new, because it's within the increase of 20 meters north, all of the specifics. And that the committee of the whole recommends to council to negotiate the lease for 20 years, renegotiate. And further, that the committee of the whole recommend that council provide a letter of support to the Oliver Sea Search and Rescue for the community granting, or gaining grant application. So that, I think that captures what we just talked about, if anybody would like to make that motion. Councilor Schwarzenberger and seconded Councilor Bryce. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, thank you.
to business tonight so that it can be endorsed by
Right.
council.
Perfect. I think it's already on the agenda for tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay, business 2 is Odd Squad funding request.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna have to excuse myself as my son-in-law is the one who's asking for the
Asking for money.
money.
Seems fair. Okay, thank you. So we have a chief financial officer's report attached, so I will turn it over to our chief financial officer, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This request came in from, sorry, I just can't remember his name, but anyway.
Todd Coates.
Oh, thank you. As a request to, from the town of Osoyoos, Oliver, Osoyoos, the Osoyoos Indian Band, and they're looking at bringing this Odd Squad drug prevention and awareness and gang violence seminar to both secondary schools in respective towns. It's indicated from his email to myself that the total budget's going to be around $6,000, and he's requesting support from the town of Oliver, as well as I believe the CAO will probably give us an update that the town of Osoyoos has provided some monetary funding as well. And so this is for direction from yourselves, from council.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anyone that would like to start? Councilor Mills?
I just have a question, has an actual grant need application been filled out?
No.
Is that necessary?
Is that how the process works?
Well, it is, but this one is small enough that, like, it would be from your unconditional, I do believe.
But is there still an application required for that?
Yes, there is. But we did not give it to him to fill out, or he would have.
I have some stuff to say if no one's jumping on it, but I don't want to jump the queue.
I was gonna move the recommendation, but
Okay, well, before you do that, what's the recommendation? Council support the recent sub request. Okay, so before you do that, then I would like to make my comments. Yes.
Prior to you making your comments,
Okay.
I'll let you know that the town of Osoyoos did provide $1,500 in funding towards this. And you can't, the committee of the whole would have to recommend that council do this at the meeting too.
Okay, thank you. So my comments were gonna be just that, the town of Osoyoos has, contributed $1,500 towards this project. I think I've heard of this project from Todd, through the Rural Sustainable Healthcare Group. He's just kind of been keeping everybody up to date on what he's trying to work on. It seems like an amazing program, and we would be lucky to have it in our community. He's the community paramedic for Osoyoos. He doesn't have to work here. He doesn't have jurisdiction here. He's just trying to, spread awareness in both of our communities. So I would like to see us match the monies that Osoyoos donated, and that not be contingent on the Osoyoos Indian Band contributing as well, because in my mind, it's just something that we should want to contribute towards, and if they also see the benefit, then that's fabulous, and if they don't, hopefully they attend the sessions at secondary school. That's my opinion. Councilor Grice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with your comments. I think that considering this crime issue that we're having, and it's, it seems that the root cause of it is drug addiction, that if we can get to our youth before they go down that road, that's something that we should participate in.
Yeah, and it's a pretty, well-versed, and it's a well-known program, coming out of the Vancouver Police Department. Okay, anyone else?
so
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
It's on the board.
Okay,
I'll make a motion, the committee of the whole recommend the council support the Odd Squad funding request to a maximum of $1,500. And the monies we drawn from the 2019 grant aid budget of $9,000.
thank you very much. Second by Councilor Grice, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Great, Councilor Frontier. And on to the climate action carbon offsets. And back over to our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This topic, conversation actually came out of budget discussions back in late January, early February, and the mayor at that time mentioned, and he's a lot more conversant with carbon offsets than I certainly am, and I since have become a little bit more educated by reading the material and then contacting the was it Darren, I think is, what's the
David
gentleman?
Cassian?
Pardon me?
David?
Yeah, but also the one in Kelowna.
Brian.
Brian, thank you.
Brian.
And I've talked to both gentlemen who've indicated that, both parties are doing things a little bit differently. The city of Kelowna, he's confirmed with myself that they've never purchased carbon offsets, ever. He indicated to me that he feels quite strongly they will never achieve carbon neutrality, and that's just their normal, their operations, their magnitude of operations are so significant that it's going to be highly unlikely they'll ever achieve. They'd like to strive for it, and that's part of the climate action charter that you sign on to, but they don't purchase. They use it, they put money in a reserve, and as projects come along, whatever the projects are, they make that determination that part of it can come from the climate action reserve. All of it's going to come, it just depends on the type of project they're doing. As well, the city of Penticton indicated the same, however, they are buying carbon offsets. And so my report is really highlighting to you is what the mayor brought forward to us back in January. It becomes an issue, currently the town of Oliver, we purchased carbon offsets to achieve carbon neutrality. Those carbon offsets last year cost us about, actually 2017, cost us just over $5,000. What do we get for that $5,000? We get to say we're carbon neutral. So that's if we don't go with this carbon neutrality anymore, we save ourselves $5,000. I'm recommending we put the money into a reserve, similar to what Kelowna does, but the downside of that is you're not carbon neutral, if that is what council wishes. So I'm seeking direction from council.
Thank you for that report. Would anybody want to make a comment? Mayor, keep wanting to. Councilor Johansson, City Councilor, Mayor Johansson.
I believe that we should be taking that money and doing energy conservation projects or GHG reduction projects instead of paying the money for carbon offsets and saying we're carbon neutral. I don't think that means anything. Let's take that money and do something proactive with it. Whether it's solar or street lighting or LED street lighting or, upgrades to any of our buildings or infrastructure, I think that's money that would be well used.
Okay, Councilor Mattis.
Totally agree with that. It's kind of like buying indulgences so that we can say that we're guilt-free here, when in actual fact.
Super good. What else on this side?
I echo my two colleagues. We're not carbon neutral. Buying it just is bookkeeping, so let's put the money in a fund and actually do something.
Yeah.
I think
Even if we never achieve it.
Even if we never achieve the ultimate goal.
The sticker.
Well, and thank you for bringing that to our attention back in February or so, because I would never had the conversation because we never knew it was a thing, right? Yeah, that's great. Okay. So, we will be looking for another recommendation of sorts.
I move recommend option 2.
Okay. And it is up there. I can read it if we want, but this is that the town establish a climate action reserve and that the annual CAREF grant funds received from the province be credited to the reserve as projects that meet the climate action charter criteria are approved. All or part of the reserve can be utilized as a funding source. Being the seconder. Lots of seconders. All in favor? And opposed? Were you in favor?
No.
Okay.
No.
Perfect timing. Did you have something to add?
I think she voted.
No, I did not vote.
She kind of wanted to, but no. Did you have something to add? I'm sorry.
Not to that particular item, but the next item is in the wrong place. It should have been put under water.
Okay.
We missed it again, Mr. Michelle.
All right. So.
Good thing we changed it. That was the whole point.
Do we need to-
to?
Do we need to do anything about that, or it can stay there?
It can
right?
stay there,
It can stay there.
but the conversation would be with everybody.
Okay, sounds good. So, this is the delegation of council executive administrative powers bylaw 1385 over to the corporate officer, I believe.
Thank you, Chair Ventimiglia. This item was brought to the April 23rd regular council meeting, and the resolution was postponed for second and third readings of the bylaw, and to bring it to the committee of the whole for a more holistic discussion. Just as a little bit of a background, council has a delegation of authority bylaw that delegates authority to officers to execute documents. We also have a delegation bylaw for personnel responsibilities, which the CAO is the required authority to manage personnel responsibilities. The proposed bylaw for council's consideration would provide the committee of the whole the authority to consider meeting items and vote upon them without having to refer to a regular council meeting. As an example, the last 2 or 3 resolutions have been worded that the committee of the whole recommends to council. So now they'll come to our 7 o'clock meeting for second and third or for further discussion. So it's open to council, the committee of the whole, to discuss and determine whether or not you wish to introduce this type of a bylaw to give the committee of the whole that authority. But the recommendation also that budget and water items would be continued to be dealt with at the regular council meeting.
Okay, and bylaw, I think it was too, right?
Yes.
Finance,
Budget and water.
Bylaws, budget and water.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anyone that would like to start the conversation? Councilor Shaw.
So I read that as any water matters wouldn't be able to be dealt with in the committee meeting, right?
That's correct. That would go to regular.
It would be, sorry to jump in, but that they would be discussed, but no
No.
motion would be passed.
So in other words, they would be exempt from,
There's certain things that we can still discuss at committee of the whole, if I understood this right, but we would still have to recommend to council to adopt them. Those would be water, finance, bylaw, whatever else. Councilor Menace?
My only concern with what I'm reading here is that those things are not mentioned in the bylaw. Like it says in the preamble,
yeah.
if I'm reading it correctly, you know, I would still sit there from corporate officer, I would still suggest that budget items and bylaws continue to be dealt with regular council meeting, It says that there, but when you read the actual town hall bylaw 1385, it's not there.
All right, our CAO has something to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bylaw has not had any readings. We can add in that information with regards to those 3 items not being part of this delegation. So,
It's important because otherwise it will get lost.
Right.
Along the way.
Yep.
it would be in the whereas clauses.
So I guess the motion would be add those and then bring it back for first, second, and third, because you can't do that today until the other.
No, we weren't gonna bring it back until the next meeting.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion?
I think that was the point Councilor Michelle brought up, that because one of you may be missing, we shouldn't be passing anything.
Yeah, and my point was more just that I like the idea that you're not necessarily making a final decision on something the first time you hear it. You have a little bit of time to think about it, even if that's just an hour or 2, and then issues come back later on.
But if you grant this, you will have the power to do that now.
I know, and that's why I didn't like it when I read it last, that's why I needed more time last time, I wasn't quite ready to do it.
Certain things like, for example, the USAR today, like that's a decision that I think we could have made today without having to bring it back this evening.
Right.
Well, if we look at then what we're saying, for sure, we'll come back for the second time around, no matter what, and if there are those 4 main things that were mentioned,
Would fall under finances.
yeah, they all, well,
They
they all,
all finance, right?
that's what I was thinking, so when I read that, they all.
Over the years, it hasn't been this year.
No. Guys, when I read that,
Not
of
sure
the
what
things, just
project.
for my own interest, out of the things that we're recommending to the council tonight, what would we have been able to make a final decision on this afternoon, should we have the new bylaw? Because the search and rescue is finance, odd squad is finance.
Search and rescue, I wouldn't say is finance per se.
It's
No,
land.
it's just land.
It's
Just
land.
land, transferring land.
but the Odd Squad, the Climate Action, those would have both had to come forward. So we're capturing most everything except for the kind of really small stuff. Okay.
See you.
Okay, yeah. Sure. Anybody wanna make a recommendation? That was the discussion. Yeah, there's a proposed motion, yeah.
I'll move that the committee of the whole recommends that council proceed with implementing delegation of council executive administrative powers bylaw 1385 and that bylaws, budget, and water items. Are we adding finance to that as well?
Budget is finance.
Thank you. That bylaws, budget, and water items continue to be dealt with at the regular council meeting and wording be added to the whereas clauses in the bylaw.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? And all in favor? All opposed? Excellent. And we have a public question period, no one here, so motion to adjourn.
So
Thank you. Yes.
Let's eat.
Thank you.
I'm gonna grab a water from
Thank you.
I guess that's good for marijuana being written